I thought I made it pretty clear last week that the number 12 isn't exactly my best friend. It's just a very unlucky digit in my life. And because last week was week 12, I predicted that my predictions would suck ass. And that prediction itself was wrong. Somehow I managed to go 12-2 in week 12, even getting the bonus prediction that the Raiders would not score 14 points on the Browns was correct. They did not score 14 points on the Browns. So I feel like that itself is really a bad omen. Just the week where I'm supposed to be bad, it's my best week so far. I somehow pulled off an upset against myself. That's crazy. But let's get right into the Thanksgiving games. First up, you got the all-too-good Green Bay Packers versus the Detroit Lions for the first Thanksgiving game. The Lions just faced the New York Giants where they did not look too good for the first 3 quarters of the game. But right around the fourth quarters when they rallied back and Jahmyr Gibbs really stepped up as the star player. But he had another 200-plus yard game to save the Lions and beat the Giants. Again, maybe it's a Giants thing, but once again, another New York Giants game was close. So despite the rocky first 3 quarters, the Lions did ultimately pull out the victory. Meanwhile, the Packers had full control over their game over the Vikings, where, it was just pure domination. Simple as that. Just look at the stat sheets. That's all you really need to see. The last time these two teams faced was in week 1, and it was really before the Lions could really get up to speed, if that makes sense. But now that we're in the middle of the season and both teams are starting to get hot, there's no excuses for who loses this matchup. Fire fucking game that could go either way. And even though the Lions have not had great luck with the Packers over the past couple years, I think they will come away with the win here. Perhaps with the return of Frank Ragnow, that'll beef up the already solid offensive line against the pretty vicious Green Bay Packers D-line. I don't know. Again, this game could go either way, but I'm leaning a little bit more towards the Lions here. And with how good Jahmyr Gibbs has been doing recently, I don't see why not. Next, you got the Kansas City Chiefs versus the Dallas Cowboys. This is going to be another great game. 2 solid teams going at it. The Cowboys defeated the Philadelphia Eagles as I predicted. I predicted that upset, but I did not predict that the Cowboys would be down 21 points and managed to pull off a comeback. I didn't think that's how they would win, but they did. They proved that they can beat an elite team, which is impressive for the Dallas Cowboys. Meanwhile, the Chiefs proved that they're still edging elite territory by beating the Indianapolis Colts in overtime. Needless to say that I just want this to be the great game that it's destined to be. And despite the Chiefs' precise offense and the Cowboys' lackluster secondary, I kind of want to roll the dice and go for the Cowboys to win this one. I'm aware that Rashee Rice had a fucking fire performance in his last game against the Colts, but another receiver that had a fire performance? George Pickens. He wasn't getting many targets at first, but when Dak started throwing his direction, he was lighting shit up. And I'm really hoping he gets some more of those targets so that he can display his unique energy on that Chiefs defense. Because you can say what you want about George Pickens, you can't deny that he is entertaining, and that is what I want while I'm eating a good-ass Thanksgiving meal. So I'm rolling the dice, and I'm going for the Cowboys to win another game against another good team. Might bite me in the ass, but again, I just want a good game, most of all. And for the final Thanksgiving game, you got the Cincinnati Bengals versus the Ravens in Baltimore. The Ravens took down the Jets, nothing much to talk about there. Meanwhile, the Bengals took on the Patriots and lost to them. The defense was fine for the Bengals, but their offense just looks hopeless without Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase. But good news, Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase are back, and they will be playing this game against the Ravens. Holy shit. This is cinema. This should be a fucking W Thanksgiving. W NFL Day for Thanksgiving. Now both teams are missing some key offensive players. For the Bengals, it is T. Higgins, and for the Ravens, Justice Hill. But other than that, their offenses are at near full strength, and both defenses are pretty rattled, shaken up with injuries. So these two are evenly matched, quite honestly. I'm gonna roll the goddamn dice again and say that Cincinnati comes away with this win, with a nice little recovery win, Joe Burrow's return game, and the fact that, it could go either way with these two teams, and it's been that way for a while. It is not impossible for the Bengals to win this game, and I think they will. I think they'll pull this one out. The Bengals might do that thing again where like they have a shit start to the first half of the year and then they try to do a nice little U-turn. It might be too late for the playoffs, but it's not too late for them to get a couple of good wins at the in the second half of the season here. On Black Friday football, yes, the primetime games keep on coming. You got the Chicago Bears versus the Philadelphia Eagles. The Eagles, as I said earlier, blew one fucking girthy ass lead to the Cowboys. They pissed all up in the mattress. They blew this lead. Yes, they blew this lead. They did not win this game here. That whole game against the Cowboys by both teams was just a catastrophe. Fumbles left and right, penalties galore, just all kinds of crazy shit going down. It was entertaining to say the least. But when you boil it down, it was the Eagles blowing a 3-possession lead to a less dominant Cowboys team. Meanwhile, the Bears took care of the Steelers, beating them and advancing to 8-3. This is the most fluent and clutch Bears team that I can recall ever seeing, and it's very uncharacteristic for such an unhinged and unstable franchise. And they beat the Steelers with a litany of injuries, particularly on that defense. There are a lot of missing players, and they still managed to come away with the victory. And taking on an Eagles offense that has just not been consistent. They just cannot play for all 4 quarters. I'm going to pick the Bears to win. I got Chicago winning this game, taking advantage of that sloppy Eagles offense. And the Bears are hot right now, and the Eagles are not usually a team that stops hot streaks. So, yeah, I got Chicago winning this one. Next, you got the San Francisco 49ers versus the Cleveland Browns. Both of these teams came off of some ugly-ass wins, but we'll start with the 49ers. They were handed their win by the Panthers. I feel like the 49ers played pretty badly, but the Panthers just played worse. CMC doing his thing, just carrying the team, both receiving and rushing. Brock Purdy threw 3 fucking interceptions that game, and they couldn't even squeeze out more than 20 points against a subpar Panthers team. Meanwhile, with the Browns, we got to finally see Shedeur Sanders make his first NFL start, and he came away with a win. Now, as happy as I am for him, we gotta be honest and address the fact that it was an ugly win. It was not a clean cut against the Raiders. Shedeur and Judkins were fine, but the rest of that Browns offense just needs to step up. They got to lock in. Now, even though I'm aware that the 49ers can be the better team, I see the Browns winning this game. It's just that it's been too long since the 49ers offense has looked solid. They've been sloppy, disorganized, and they're taking on a Browns defense that doesn't play around with disorganized offenses. They're going to beat your ass. And the last time these two teams faced off, which was only a couple years ago, the 49ers offense was hot and looking great, and they still lost. So, you know what I mean? Do the math. I got Cleveland coming away with the win here. Next, you got the Arizona Cardinals versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Both of these teams are coming off of losses, with the Buccaneers getting washed by the Rams and the Cardinals losing a close one to the Jags. With the Buccaneers, it wasn't even a close game. They lost in the first half, and then there was no recovering from there. The Rams even did that courteous gesture where they try to let their opponents back into the game late, and the Buccaneers still wouldn't budge. Meanwhile, the Cardinals at least fought hard, but still lost to the Jaguars. Jacoby Brissett threw damn near 50 times, and didn't throw any picks, so that's good. But they couldn't pull it out. Cardinals could not seem to get a ground game going. No one was over 30 yards rushing that game. Now, as a team, I think the Buccaneers are better, but they're coming off of a more underwhelming performance than the Cardinals. So that makes this a tough game for me to predict. I'm going to go with the Buccaneers this time because they took on a much more difficult Rams team. So going against the Cardinals should be much easier for them. I wouldn't be surprised if Arizona came away with the win here, but I think the Buccaneers winning is the more logical outcome. Speaking of the Rams, they'll be taking on the Panthers in Carolina. The Panthers' performance on Monday Night Football against the Niners was just disrespectful to the sport of football. Bryce Young went from throwing for damn near 450 yards and 3 touchdowns to throwing less than a third of those yards and 2 interceptions. The 49ers were trying to give them that game and they just wouldn't fucking take it. There's really nothing else to discuss here. The Rams should take this game, no fucking problem. Next, you get an intriguing game between the Texans and the Colts. The Texans upset the Bills while the Colts nearly upset the Chiefs. Though the Colts have a much better record and are looking better than the Chiefs, so would that really be an upset? Did the Colts get upsetted? It really doesn't matter. Bottom line is that the Texans won a close game while the Colts lost a close game. Basically, all I see here is a consistent Colts team versus the number 1 defense in the NFL. Whenever these two teams play, it's always a close matchup. It hasn't not been close since 2021. And in that time, the Texans have been the ones doing most of the ass beating. But obviously, this is a slightly different Colts team than what we've been seeing. Even though the Texans did manage to take down the Bills, I'm going with the Colts to win this one. The Colts have just not been losing to any team that's less than great this year. And the Texans, I wouldn't necessarily call a great team. They're very much a mixed bag. It's week 13 and I still can't tell what the fuck their status is. This game could go either way, but I'm sticking with the Colts. Next, you got the New Orleans Saints versus the Miami Dolphins. That might be the worst matchup of the week. Saints lost a pitiful game to the Falcons. Don't want to get into that. Meanwhile, the Dolphins just came off a bye week, but the last time we seen them on the field, they barely beat the Redskins in a pitiful game. Devon Achane is starting to look like the core of the Dolphins offense. He's like the CMC of Miami. I got the Dolphins winning, I guess. Scratch that. There's a worst game of the week. This bullshit right here. I'm not even gonna devote any of my time to this matchup here. I'm just gonna say Falcons win. Here's another contender for shittiest game of the week. Jaguars vs. Titans. Trevor Lawrence in his victory over the Cardinals threw 3 touchdowns, but with that he threw 3 interceptions as well. So it was a shitty great game for him, if you will. Meanwhile, Cam Ward doing everything in his power to keep the Titans, I don't know, looking like a fighting spirit. They almost came back on the Seahawks, but they didn't. This game actually could go either way. I still do think the Jaguars can and should win. There's just no part of the Titans that they should fear other than a well-protected Cam Ward, I guess. But there's not a whole lot that Cam Ward can do when he's surrounded by shit coaching and fucking... Look, I'm not gonna do all that. Jaguars win. Next, you got the Vikings taking on the Seahawks. Like I was saying, the Seahawks went against the Titans and they were dominating them for a while. Looked like it was going to be a blowout, but they started to let the Titans trickle back into the game, which is not what you want to see if you're a Seahawks fan. It's week 13 and I'm still not convinced that the Seahawks are an elite team. I'm not seeing it. I don't know how you let the Titans almost come back on you. What are you, the Cardinals? They'll be taking on a Minnesota Vikings team that didn't look good at any point in their game against the Packers. J.J. McCarthy threw for less than 100 pass yards and threw 2 picks. And I can only feel bad for the young buck. Again, not a whole lot to talk about here. If the Seahawks are such a great team, they should be able to handle the Vikings no problem. This should be like a 40-point fucking blowout. Next, you finally got another good game. Bills taking on the Steelers in Pittsburgh. The Bills choked away a should-be win to the Texans last Thursday Night Football. Meanwhile, the Steelers also choked away a what-should-be win against the Bears. It looks like Mason Rudolph is still going to be the quarterback for the Steelers, and he's sufficient enough, I suppose, with the exception of this play right here. It would really help if you got in on the mix, buddy. And in this last week, the Bills swapped out Elijah Moore for Brandon Cooks. Now, was this necessary? I don't think so, but we're not going to sit up here and deny that they did get a better receiver. So perhaps this means something for that already somewhat solid Bills offense. I don't think it got so much better or anything like that. The Steelers really need this win to get back on their feet because they're starting to slip a little bit. Their record's starting to look a little stinky. But the Bills are not really a team to go on losing streaks. And of course, they just lost their last game. So I'm going to give this one to the Bills. I think they'll come away with this one. They just seem like they have more fight in their roster all around, as opposed to the Steelers, who I'm not seeing a whole lot of that on the offense, at least. Next, you got the Vegas Raiders taking on the LA Justin Herbert. That's right, we're back to calling them the LA Justin Herbert because Justin Herbert left the Chargers last game early due to a concussion, and the Chargers played impressively horrible against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Even leaving the game early, Herbert was still the Chargers' leading passer and rusher. I don't think there's a single man in the NFL that carries his team harder than Justin Herbert. It's not even close. But the only thing stinkier than the Chargers is the Raiders, who did largely nothing against the Cleveland Browns. Herbert should be good to go for the Chargers this game, and if that's the case, then they should knock the Raiders out no problem. There should be no reason the Chargers lose here. Next, you got the Denver Broncos taking on the Washington Redskins. Last time we seen the Redskins, they just look like shit. Complete, utter shit against the Dolphins. They went on a bye week, and during that bye week, they signed Jake Moody as their kicker. I'm sure Deebo Samuel is living the dream right now. And the Broncos, who also just had a bye week, last time we seen them, they took down the Kansas City Chiefs as I predicted. The Redskins have officially taken the title from the 49ers as the most injured team in the NFL right now. Too many questionable players and injuries for me to devote my brain power into thinking how good this team might be. I'm just going to vote the Broncos to win since they're still on a winning streak, even if it's a bunch of ugly wins. However they do it, Denver should come away with this one. And finally, you got the New York Giants versus the New England Patriots. The Giants surprisingly were dominating the Detroit Lions last week, pulling some tricky moves to get by the Detroit defense and maintain the lead for quite some time, but they would ultimately let the Lions back into the game, to which the game would go to overtime and result in a Detroit victory. And with the Giants choking that win away, eliminated them from this year's playoff contention. Meanwhile, the Patriots are now just about one win away from going to the playoffs. After defeating the Bengals and extending their winning streak to, 9? Now, even though it's a Monday night game and anything can happen, I think it's safe to say that the Patriots are going to be winning this game, right? I mean, come on. When have the Patriots ever been on an impressively long winning streak that got shut down by the Giants? Come on, guys. Let's stop being silly here. Patriots are going to win this game. But that's going to do it. I'm really hoping that I have another great week of predictions like I did the past couple weeks. And I also hope that all of y'all have a great Thanksgiving. I know I will.